On my 45th birthday, my wife and kids made me sit at the head of the table for a special surprise. My daughter handed me a box. Inside was a cheap plastic trophy that said "World's #1 disappointment." They thought it was funny. I smiled and said thank you, blew out the candles, thanked them all, and cleaned up alone while they watched TV. That night, I made a plan. A week later my wife showed up at my old job in a bathrobe, crying and shouting, "He left us with nothing." Look, I've never been the type to air dirty laundry online. Ruth would probably roll her eyes if she knew I was typing this out at 2:38 a.m. on my phone while sitting in my garage that I built with my own 2 hands, by the way, though the family calls it Dad's junk room. But something happened yesterday that I can't shake, and I need to get this off my chest before the engine in my head explodes. Some background: I turned 45 yesterday. Been married to Ruth for 22 years. Got 2 kids: Emily, 19, just started college, and Oscar, 14, thinks he knows everything. I've been at the same factory since before Emily was born. Not glamorous work, but it's kept food on the table and the lights on. 50-hour weeks minimum. Haven't missed a mortgage payment in 15 years. The factory's been talking layoffs lately. Everyone's walking on eggshells. 3 guys from my line got pink slips last month. Management keeps saying restructuring like it's supposed to make us feel better. My blood pressure's through the roof. Ruth keeps saying we should downsize, but she's eyeing a new kitchen remodel at the same time. Make that make sense. So yesterday was my birthday. Usually it's nothing special, maybe a store-bought cake, a card from the kids if they remember. This year, though, Ruth texted me at work, "Make sure you're home by 6 o'clock. Special dinner for your birthday." I'll admit, something in my chest lightened up a bit. Thought maybe they finally noticed the last couple years have been rough. Ruth and I barely talk anymore unless it's about bills. Emily only calls when she needs money for textbooks or whatever else 19-year-olds need these days. Oscar is either gaming or avoiding eye contact. Got home at 5:58 p.m. always punctual, one of my few remaining points of pride. Showered away the factory grime, put on the one decent button-up I own, dark blue one Ruth got me 3 Christmases ago. Came downstairs with this stupid little spark of hope. The dining room table was actually set. Not paper plates, the good dishes that normally only come out when Ruth's sister visits. Candles lit. A homemade cake. For a second, just a second, I felt like maybe I mattered. Ruth pointed to the head of the table with this exaggerated sweep of her arm. Emily was filming with her phone, first red flag, but I ignored it. Oscar had this weird smirk. They all sang happy birthday, but something was off, the way they kept exchanging these little glances. Here's the thing about expectations, they're just pre-packaged disappointments waiting to be unwrapped. After the singing, Emily hands me this wrapped box, about the size of a coffee mug. Wrapped in glossy blue paper with actual ribbon. I remember thinking, damn, they really went all out. I opened it slowly. Ruth always complained I tear through presents like a savage, and inside is this gold-colored plastic trophy, about 6 inches tall. The kind you get at a dollar store. I turn it around and read the engraving, "World's #1 disappointment." For a second I didn't process it. Then they all started laughing. Emily zoomed in with her phone camera right on my face. She said, "Tell Dad to give an acceptance speech." Ruth was practically crying with laughter, saying, "We saw it and just knew it had your name on it." Oscar high-fived his sister. 22 years of 60-hour weeks. 22 years of missed fishing trips so I could pick up extra shifts. 22 years of driving cars with 200,000 plus miles so they could have new phones, computers, and whatever else. And this was my reward, a trophy calling me a disappointment while my daughter filmed my reaction for whatever social media platform teenagers use these days. My face did that thing it learned to do years ago, smile without feeling it. My throat closed up like someone had poured quick-dry cement down it. But I nodded, said thanks, even held it up like I was at some award show. The cake was store-bought after all, chocolate with vanilla frosting. I blew out the candles, just 4 of them, not 45, because who has time for that, and made a wish I'm not proud of. Ruth served everybody cake. We ate. They talked about some reality show they're all obsessed with. I nodded at the appropriate intervals. The trophy sat next to my plate, catching the candlelight, that word disappointment flashing every time I moved my head. When dinner was done, they all migrated to the living room. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, wrapped up the leftover cake. The whole time I could hear them laughing from the other room. At one point Emily said something about his face when he read it, and there was more laughter. I put the trophy on the mantel, seemed like that's what they wanted. Then I went to the garage, sat in my '89 Silverado that Ruth's been begging me to sell for years, and just stared at the pegboard wall with all my tools hanging in their proper places, the only space in this house that's still mine. At 11:43 p.m. my phone buzzed, notification from Instagram. Emily had tagged me in a post. I don't really use Instagram much, but I have an account to keep tabs on the kids. It was a video, my reaction to the trophy. She'd added some song in the background with lyrics about losers or failures. Caption read, "Dad's big moment #dad fails #disappointment trophy #birthday fail." 8,812 likes already. I turned my phone off. Turned it back on. Checked our bank accounts. Joint checking had $4,387.21. Savings had $1,244.65. Ruth's emergency fund that I'm not supposed to touch but still fund had around 1.5K. I've spent most of tonight making a list. Things I own outright, accounts only in my name, people who might still respect me, places I could start over, what I'm legally obligated to provide versus what I've been providing. It's now 3:29 a.m. I've been sitting here drafting emails to myself, making calls I'll make tomorrow, planning each step. A man can only be a disappointment if he continues to seek approval from those who've decided to withhold it. I've been trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom for too many years. Tomorrow I'm calling in sick. First time in 3 years. While everyone's out of the house, I'm going to start putting things in motion. I've been their ATM, their handyman, their emotional punching bag for too long. That cheap plastic trophy was the clearest message they've ever sent me. You don't matter here. Message received. That's all for now. Over and out. Update 1. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Currently writing this from my new place. Will answer questions at the end. First off, to the Redditor who DM'd me saying I should just man up and communicate better. My friend, you don't put out an engine fire with a water pistol. Some things are beyond repair. 22 years of trying to talk it out has gotten me exactly where I am, holding a plastic trophy that says I'm a disappointment. So here's how the week after my birthday went down. Buckle up. That morning after my birthday, Tuesday 6:15 a.m., I called in sick for the first time in forever. Shift manager actually asked if I was dying. Dark humor, but it felt about right. I waited until 8:37 a.m. when Ruth left to go shopping with her sister. Emily was at college, Oscar caught the bus to school. Then I began Operation Get My Life Back. Look, I'm a methodical guy. My toolbox has foam cutouts for each wrench. Everything has its place. So I approached this the same way I'd rebuild a transmission, identify the problem, gather the right tools, take it apart piece by piece, and rebuild something that actually works. First stop, our home office. Ruth keeps the filing cabinet organized her way, which means I spent 45 minutes digging through folders labeled helpful things like important and stuff. What I found turned my slow burn into a 5-alarm fire, 3 credit card statements I'd never seen before, combined balance $34,636 and change. Minimum monthly payments that explained why our joint account always seemed lighter than it should be. Purchases from places I've never even heard of. A separate cell phone bill for a number I didn't recognize. Pro tip, if you're going to hide financial infidelity from your spouse, maybe don't leave the statements in a folder marked My Stuff, Don't Touch in bright red Sharpie. I photographed everything. Didn't take anything, just documented it. Then I drove to my bank, not the branch where Ruth and I usually go, but one across town. The personal banker looked concerned when I explained I needed to open a separate account. She asked if everything was okay at home. I just said, sometimes the check engine light comes on for a reason. You can ignore it for a while, but eventually something's going to blow. By noon I had a new checking account in my name only, a change of direct deposit form for my upcoming paycheck, and the name of a financial advisor the banker recommended. Next stop, grocery store. Bought one of those prepaid phones, nothing fancy, just basic calling and texting. Paid cash. Activated it in the parking lot. Around 2 p.m. I called Jake, a buddy from my old neighborhood who manages maintenance at an apartment complex. Asked if he had any units available. He did, a one-bedroom place, nothing special but clean. I could move in immediately if I paid first and last month's rent up front. Done. Wednesday morning I went to work as usual. The supervisor mentioned an upcoming training opportunity the following week, 5 days at the regional office. Perfect timing. I volunteered immediately. Nobody else wanted to go, it's usually boring as hell, so I got approved on the spot. That night at dinner I tried one last time. I really did. Asked Ruth what she thought about us maybe seeing a marriage counselor. She laughed, said we didn't need someone charging us $100 an hour to tell me I needed to lighten up. Emily chimed in that I was being extra and rolled her eyes. Oscar didn't even look up from his phone. Thursday after work I swung by the apartment, signed the lease, handed over the cash, got my keys. The place smelled like fresh paint and carpet cleaner. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, bathroom with a shower that had seen better days, but it was mine. All mine. No one to call it a disappointment. Jake helped me carry in a second-hand mattress he had in storage. Real friends don't ask questions when you show up needing a place to sleep, they just hand you a beer and ask if you need help moving furniture. Friday during lunch I did something I'd never done before, logged into my 401k account and requested a loan against it. Not the whole thing, just enough to give me a cushion while I sorted things out. The website said it would take 3 to 5 business days to process. That night Ruth mentioned wanting to remodel the master bathroom. Said she'd been looking at fixtures online, would probably cost around $12,000. Asked if I could pull some overtime. I nodded, said I'd see what I could do, all the while knowing I wouldn't be there to install those fixtures. The irony of her planning new additions while I was planning my exit didn't escape me. Saturday morning Ruth and the kids went to her mother's place about an hour away. They do this once a month, stay overnight, come back Sunday evening. With the house empty, I put my plan into high gear. I went through our bedroom, gathering only what was truly mine: the watch my father left me when he died, my high school football ring, the rare vinyl records I'd collected over the years, the photo album of my parents and childhood, clothes that could fit in 2 duffel bags, my tools from the garage, the one thing I absolutely wasn't leaving behind. In the office I made copies of tax returns for the last 7 years, mortgage statements, insurance policies, birth certificates, marriage license, bank statements showing my contributions, a spreadsheet I created documenting every major purchase I'd made for the family. Left all the originals. This wasn't about stealing documents, just protecting myself. By mid-afternoon my small apartment had transformed from empty to sparse but functional. Mattress on the floor, folding table with a chair, my tools organized along one wall. Not exactly Better Homes and Gardens material, but it didn't have to be permanent. Sunday morning I sat down at that folding table and wrote 3 letters, one for Ruth, one for Emily, one for Oscar. Ruth's was straightforward. I explained that I was leaving, that I wouldn't contest a divorce if she wanted one, that I'd found her hidden credit cards, that 22 years of being treated like an ATM and a punchline had finally run the well dry, that I'd continue supporting Oscar because he was still a minor, but I wouldn't be financing anyone's lifestyle anymore. Emily's was shorter. I told her that adults face consequences for how they treat people, that filming someone's humiliation for social media likes isn't a joke, it's cruelty, that I'd always love her but I wouldn't be available as an emergency fund anymore, that when she was ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect my door would be open. Oscar's was the hardest to write. He's 14, still figuring out who he is. I told him I wasn't abandoning him, that I'd continue being his dad, that he could call my new phone anytime, that this wasn't his fault, but that he was old enough to understand that how we treat people matters. I included my new address and told him he always had a place with me if he needed it. I sealed each in an envelope with their names. Sunday night they returned from Grandma's. Oscar mentioned his gaming PC was acting up, asked if I could look at it tomorrow. I said I would, knowing I wouldn't be. Emily talked about needing money for some campus event. Ruth complained about her mother's cooking, normal Sunday night stuff. After everyone went to bed, I placed the 3 envelopes on the kitchen table, propped against that damn trophy I'd moved from the mantel. Symbolic? Yeah, maybe a little heavy-handed, but hell, sometimes you need to make a point. I took one last walk through the house I'd paid for, ran my hand along the dining room table where they'd laughed at me, looked at the family photos on the wall, smiling faces that didn't match the reality I'd been living in. In the garage, I made sure every tool was back in its proper place before taking them down one by one and placing them in my old toolbox. At 2:17 a.m., I loaded the last of my belongings into my truck. The neighbor's motion detector lights came on as I backed out of the driveway. For a split second I thought about all the Sunday afternoons I'd spent helping that same neighbor install those lights, fix his lawn mower, jumpstart his car in winter. Funny how life works. Monday morning I drove straight to the office where my training was supposed to be held, called my supervisor, told him I wouldn't be at training after all, in fact I wouldn't be coming back at all. He sounded shocked, asked if everything was okay. I said it was better than okay for the first time in years. Then I shut off my regular phone, activated the new one, sent a text to my buddy Jake letting him know the mission was complete. By 9:30 a.m., I was sitting in the parking lot of my new workplace, a competitor that had been trying to hire me for months. The HR lady seemed surprised to see me in person instead of our scheduled phone call. I explained that circumstances had changed. She smiled, said they could fast-track my paperwork. Around noon I got a call from a co-worker at my old job. Ruth had shown up looking for me. She was wearing a bathrobe, crying, screaming that I'd left them with nothing. Security had to escort her out. Nothing, her? Interesting choice of words from someone sitting on a house with 15 years of equity, 2 cars paid off by me, and plenty of those credit cards she thought I didn't know about. My phone started blowing up with texts from Ruth's number, then Emily's, then numbers I didn't recognize, probably Ruth's family. I blocked them all except Oscar. He hasn't reached out yet. That's the only part of this that still twists my gut a little. It's been 3 days now. I'm sitting in my apartment. Got the internet hooked up today. Bought myself a decent chair and a TV. Even hung up my old Metallica poster from storage, the one Ruth made me take down when we got married because it was immature. Is it petty that Enter Sandman has never sounded better than it does right now, playing in my space with no one to tell me to turn it down? Maybe. But as the song says, exit light, enter night. Some endings are also beginnings. Final update. It's been 37 days since I walked out. First thing I noticed this morning, I didn't immediately check the time when I woke up. For 22 years my brain's automatic first thought was always, am I late? Today I just woke up, stared at the ceiling of my apartment, listened to the hum of the refrigerator. No one sighing dramatically because I breathe too loud. No one asking why I haven't fixed the leaky faucet yet. Just quiet. The quiet has been the biggest adjustment. Sometimes I turn on the TV just to have background noise, old habits from a lifetime of chaos, I guess. My new place is starting to feel less like a pit stop and more like home. Got an actual bed frame yesterday. Found a decent couch at a thrift store that didn't smell like someone died on it. Small victories. But you're not here for my IKEA adventures. You want to know about the fallout. The first week was like watching a 5-car pileup in slow motion from the safety of the shoulder. Ruth called my new phone 87 times in the first 48 hours. I counted. Didn't answer once. The voicemails started with screaming, then crying, then bargaining, then threats, classic stages of grief, except nobody died. Just her ATM walked out. My old co-worker Mike texted me a play-by-play of Ruth's meltdown at my former workplace. Said she showed up in slippers and a bathrobe, mascara running down her face, demanding to know where I was. When security tried to escort her out, she started yelling that I'd emptied the accounts and left them destitute. Interesting definition of destitute. Day 9, Emily created a TikTok about me. Posted screenshots of my letters, added sad piano music, called me every name in the book. Caption was something like my dad abandoned us over a joke trophy #toxic masculinity #deadbeat #men are trash. It got around 6,000 likes before she took it down. Side note, if anyone ever tells you that you're overreacting to humiliation, Show them how quickly they melt down when they face even minor consequences for their actions. By week 2, reality started settling in at the house. Got a text from Ruth at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The mortgage payment bounced. How am I supposed to pay this on my own? I didn't respond. She'd figure it out the same way I'd figured out how to support all of them for 2 decades without so much as a thank you. Oscar finally reached out around day 15. Just a simple text. Hey Dad, the Wi-Fi is out and Mom says we can't afford to fix it. My grades are going to tank if I can't do my homework. First crack in my armor. I sent money for the internet bill directly to the provider, told him I'd set up automatic payments. Kid needs internet for school, that's not negotiable. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. Then 5 minutes later, Mom's been crying a lot. I sat in my truck staring at those 4 words for a long time. The engine of rage that had been powering me started to sputter a bit. Not because I felt bad for Ruth, she'd made her bed, but because Oscar was caught in the blast radius. I replied, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Not your burden to carry. He sent back yeah, just yeah, but that single word carried the weight of a kid who suddenly found himself the man of the house. I remember being that kid when my own dad left. The difference is, I wasn't leaving Oscar. I was just refusing to be his mother's doormat anymore. Week 3 brought the first certified letter, divorce papers. Ruth was filing on grounds of abandonment. I called the attorney I'd consulted earlier and faxed everything over. He didn't seem concerned, said my documentation of financial contributions and the fact I was still supporting Oscar would work in my favor. That same week I ran into our neighbor Tom at the hardware store. Awkward doesn't begin to describe it. He shuffled his feet, then finally asked if the rumors were true. Had I really cleaned out the accounts and left Ruth and the kids homeless? I gave him the Reader's Digest version. His face went from suspicious to understanding in about 30 seconds. Then he dropped the bomb. Emily had dropped out of college and moved back home. Ruth was trying to sell a bunch of her designer purses and shoes online. The lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. The schadenfreude I expected to feel didn't come. Instead there was this hollow feeling, like winning a race nobody should have been running in the first place. Day 23 my attorney called. Ruth wanted to settle. Her attorney had advised her that fighting would be costly and her claims of financial abandonment wouldn't hold much water given the evidence I had. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my new job, Neutral Territory, Saturday at 10 a.m. Ruth showed up 20 minutes late. She looked different, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain sweater instead of her usual carefully coordinated outfits. The designer handbag was gone, replaced with a canvas tote. She didn't make eye contact at first, just picked at her fingernails the way she does when she's nervous. She ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. She didn't mention the trophy once. The conversation was surprisingly civil, clinical, almost. She outlined what she wanted from the divorce. I countered with what I thought was fair. We haggled like we were at a flea market over the life we'd built together. Then she said something that caught me off guard. Emily's trophy video had been her idea, not our daughter's. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. 22 years together and she'd orchestrated my public humiliation as a birthday gift, planned it, filmed it, posted it, all while knowing exactly what it would do to me. I asked why. She looked at her coffee cup for a long time before answering. Said she'd been angry for years, felt trapped in a life she never really wanted, resented me for working so much even though my work kept the lights on. Said the trophy was her way of finally expressing how she felt. When I pointed out she could have just talked to me, she laughed, actually laughed, and said she'd tried but I never listened. Revisionist history at its finest. Her version of talking had always been sarcastic comments and eye rolls, never actual conversation. We wrapped up the meeting with a tentative agreement. I'd keep my 401k and truck, she'd keep the house but refinance to remove my name, we'd split the remaining assets, I'd continue supporting Oscar directly. As I stood to leave she asked if this was really what I wanted, if I was really happier living alone in some cheap apartment than with my family. I told her the truth. The disappointment trophy wasn't a joke to me. It was a receipt, a confirmation of what I'd suspected for years, that my sacrifices meant nothing to them, that I was nothing more than a walking wallet. And yes, my cheap apartment without the constant disdain was paradise compared to a house full of people who thought my humiliation was entertainment. She didn't respond. Just nodded and left. Day 30 brought another unexpected development. Oscar asked if he could come over, said he wanted to see my new place. I agreed instantly. When he showed up, he had a backpack and a duffel bag. My heart sank. Was Ruth kicking him out? Was he running away? Turns out he just wanted to spend the weekend. Ruth had agreed to it, surprisingly. He looked around my sparse apartment, nodded approvingly at my tool wall, then flopped onto the couch like he'd been there 1,000 times. That night we ordered pizza and watched stupid YouTube videos. He showed me his latest gaming achievement. I showed him how I'd organized my new workspace. Normal father-son stuff, except nothing about this was normal. Before bed he asked the question I'd been dreading. Are you ever coming home? I told him the truth, that home wasn't a place, it was a feeling, and I hadn't felt at home in that house for years. That I'd always be his dad, but I couldn't be Ruth's husband anymore. He nodded, said he got it. Then he pulled something out of his backpack and handed it to me. It was the trophy, that damn plastic trophy that had broken the camel's back. Slightly cracked now, but still intact. He said Emily had taken it down from the mantel after I left, thrown it against the wall. He'd rescued it from the trash, wasn't sure why. I turned it over in my hands. Such a small, cheap thing to end 22 years of marriage. But it wasn't about the trophy. It never had been. It was about what it represented. I thanked him, put it on my bookshelf, a reminder. The next morning Ruth called while Oscar was still asleep. She was surprisingly calm. Asked how he was doing, if he needed anything. Then she said something I never expected to hear. She'd started therapy. Said the therapist had asked her to make a list of all the ways she'd contributed to the breakdown of our marriage. Said the list was longer than she'd expected. Said she wasn't asking me to come back, she knew that ship had sailed, but she wanted me to know she was trying to understand why everything fell apart. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said okay and promised to drop Oscar off by dinner time. That brings us to today, day 37. The divorce papers are moving forward. I'm settling into my new routine. Work is going well. Turns out when you're not constantly stressed about being a disappointment, you actually do better at your job. My apartment is starting to feel like mine. Emily still hasn't spoken to me directly. Ruth texts occasionally about Oscar or divorce logistics, nothing more. Oscar comes over every other weekend now. We're working on rebuilding a car together, a '67 Mustang that's more rust than car at this point. It gives us something to focus on besides the elephant in the room. Yesterday he asked if we could try to fix the passenger side door handle, said maybe his sister might want to go for a ride someday when the car is running. First time he's mentioned any possibility of Emily and me reconnecting. Small steps. The trophy sits on my shelf. Sometimes I look at it and still feel that flash of anger. But mostly it reminds me that I had the courage to finally rebuild my own engine when it was running on fumes. Is this a happy ending? I don't know. But it's an honest one. Sometimes you have to blow up your life to remember what actually matters.